Hey, thank you for clicking on episode number 19, where we help you become the most explosive basketball player that you can be. Now, most basketball players don't know the way to maximize their workouts to become more explosive. So in this episode, you will learn what it takes to have a quicker first step, to have a quicker vertical jump, to have a quicker defensive slide, because you're training properly. Coach Sean and I even give you two free workouts, two sample workouts that you can take with you and apply to your training so that you can become the most explosive basketball player that you can be. This can be a career-changing episode for you. I hope that you take it after you watch it and that you apply the principles. So sit back, enjoy this episode, and please become the most explosive basketball player that you can be. All right, we are live. That was fun. We are live on Facebook, Elite Trading for Basketball, episode number 19, 19. Are there any number 19 jerseys that are famous? I'm trying to think. 19. Does anybody wear number 19? I don't know. I can't think of any. Welcome, everybody watching on Facebook. Currently, today is March 2nd, 2021. Coach Sean is here with us. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks, sir. Happy to be here.
You're a brand new Texan, and I just left Texas. What is the significance of, here's a little pop trivia. What is the significance of today in Texas?
Did we win the Alamo?
Today is, close to Texas Independence Day.
Is that why the flags are half mast?
Probably.
Yesterday, a lot of the flags were half mast. I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah, March 2nd, 1836, Texas gained independence. So cool.
From Mexico or?
Say what?
Independence from Mexico?
Yeah. Texas is cool. Texas is the only state in the United States that still has the legal authority to leave if they choose to become their own country.
They're also the only state legally allowed to fly their state flag at the same height as the United States flag.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. That's really cool. Interesting. I love going to Europe. I love talking with basketball players from around the world. And we didn't get to go last year, but two years ago and 3 years ago, back-to-back years, I ran camps in Latvia, and I always get some of the most random questions because our country is so unique compared to most other countries where our land mass is bigger than Europe, but Europe has all these countries, and a lot of our states are the size of countries. And the states are so unique. I love being here. I love talking about history and geography and civics and all that stuff. Anyway, we're getting way off topic. Coach Sean, today we're going to break down how to organize, how to structure your workout, what goes in there to stay explosive on the basketball court, because that's ultimately what we want to do, right? Like, we want to be explosive. We want to be fast. We want to have a high vertical jump. We want to be quick. And so we can get to those things by training properly in the basketball or in the weight room. And so we're going to get really practical. Now, this was Sean's idea. I'm not taking credit for it, and I love the idea. So basketball players, basketball coaches, strength coaches, sit back, because we are really going to get into the practical side of things on how to make a workout. And we're even going to construct a workout, design a workout right here live for you guys on air. So but before we do that, I always love to talk training with my man, Coach Sean. So what's going on with your training lately, Sean?
Oh, what is going on with my training? I'm getting stronger.
Yeah.
I was hitting back squats. I just got some new, not a drop set, more like a build set. So my coach has got me programmed. I'll do a set at 80%, and then I'll take a 30-second break, and then I'll do a rep at 85% for my working sets. So I'm kind of a way to build a little bit higher intensity into my work sets. So I'll do 3-4 reps at 80%, and then I'll do another rep at 85%. And it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be, but it's pretty tough.
The intra set rest periods are so cool. And most basketball players, most athletes don't know how to use them. Cluster sets, for example, is probably the most famous one. 5 intermittent singles. So You're going to do a set of 5 reps, but you're only going to do one at a time with 10 to 15 seconds rest in between. Allows you to do a higher intensity, kind of trick the nervous system. That's really cool. I've never done that or thought of that with Olympic lifting.
Yeah, so I'm mostly on my squats and like deadlifts and things like that. So not as much on the actual like clean jerks and snatches. We'll usually do, I'm somewhere between like 4 to 6 sets. I'll usually have 2 warm-up sets at like 60-70%.
Yeah.
And then my working sets usually start around 80%. Between like 80 and 90% are usually the working sets. Cool. So I'll have 3 to 4 like work sets with 2 to 3 warm-up sets.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too, because warm-up, man, it's so important, and most people really don't do it correctly.
I have a lot of warm-up ideas and philosophies on warming up.
Yeah, for sure. My workouts. I'm almost done with this phase, and I'm excited to go to the next phase because this phase is really kicking my butt. Today, it was just an A series. It was an A1A2. If you don't know what A1A2 means, you'll learn it here in about 10 minutes. But it was just A1A2, 9 sets, 4 to 6 deadlifts from the block, so a little bit higher, and then a farmer's carry right afterwards.
Nice.
And I had very high hopes because last night my 1-year-old daughter decided to keep us awake for about 2 hours throughout the middle of the night. So I woke up pretty groggy. I have a nice little double shot of espresso in here from the machine downstairs. But I got to the gym and I got to about, I did 6 sets. I couldn't get to 9. I was just wrecked after 6. And but my deadlift, I worked up to 365 for 5, which is okay for me right now. But and my volume is up and it's down. It's up and it's down, and that goes back to what we talked about, the edge effect. Eric Braverman, the Braverman test, and training for your neurological profile. So today was just a big old 9-set volume day, and I only got through 6. So don't tell my coach. Cool.
He doesn't watch this.
So yeah. I don't know if he watches this or not, but and those of you strength coaches that are watching this, I mean, I do this for a living, but I love having another coach write my workouts because I think it is so. And Coach Sean does the same thing. When we both are training other people, it's just really easy. You know what I mean? It's like we're programming and doing these workouts all the time, right? And so for me, it's like I don't want to have to write my own workout. I want to go to the gym and be able to look just like my clients do at a sheet of paper or listen to the coach. And so, man, it's worth every penny for me.
It's worth it. I love it. I hate worrying about, most people have issue getting into the gym. I have no problem getting to the gym, but it's like, if I don't have a plan for the day, I'll sit there and be like, oh, what do I want to do today? No. And I take time. Like you got to take like an hour to sit there, plan your like next 3-4 weeks out. It's like, I'd rather let somebody else do that for me. Because then you start writing things that you like. And then you're like, ooh, I haven't done this in a while. And like, you see things on your program that you might not have thought of, and different ways to structure things. And
love it. I'm in the same boat as you. So let's get going. Let's talk about how to structure your workout. What does it look like? What should it look like? And let's just start with the basics first. So I'm just going to start rattling off some info. Sean, feel free to chime in whenever you want.
Cool.
But how do we structure our workouts? I think it depends on the time of season you're in. So are you in season, post season, off season, beginning of off season, late off season, pre-season training camp era, training camp time? So your workouts are really predicated by where in the calendar year you are. And so because we're in March right now, we're going to talk mainly about in-season training, but we'll give you a little bit of all over the place in terms of what it should look like in the off season. I have a couple programs from former clients that we're going to look at as well and talk about, and they're very different in terms of where they are in their calendar year. So that will hopefully give you a little bit of insight. But ideally, we know where we're at in the season, and our training should be according to the season. Regarding the makeup of the workouts, I'm a big believer in an A1A2 format, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail. You'll see it in a minute written down, so it's going to be easier to understand. but it's more efficient. And if you do the math and add up all of the time under tension as well as the rest periods, you can do the same amount of work in much more limited time doing an A1A2 format. And one reason that's really important is because we know that testosterone and growth hormone, depending on the individual, peak at about 45 to 55 minutes. So you get in there, you get your warm up going, you get your heart rate up, get the sweat going, and then you have about 45 to 50 minutes before it literally falls off a cliff, unless you're doing some things that you probably aren't allowed to do, some illegal steroids, things like that. Then you can go a little bit longer. But so for the most part, we want to get in, work hard, and get out. The A1A2 format is really good too because you're usually training agonist-antagonist muscles, which synergistically work well together, which we're not really going to get into today. But arms, bicep, tricep, vertical push, vertical pull, horizontal push, horizontal pull. We can go upper lower splits, things like that. We can go quad dominant, hip dominant, back and forth. But basically, we're doing more work in less time because we got a lot of work on and we want to get through a lot of things. And we want our muscles to work in synergy with each other. So we're training agonist, antagonist muscles back and forth. Regarding basketball playing, and the title of this episode is helping you to maximize your time in the weight room so that you can be explosive. One of the big things, and Sean, I'm going to have you speak to this in a second. One of the biggest things we need to do when we're in the workout is to recruit as many motor units as possible. Now, this goes off topic in terms of a little bit of planning and structure, but I think it needs to be addressed every time we talk about training, is that the motor units and recruiting as many motor units as possible is absolutely critical if you want to be explosive.
100%.
So Sean, how do you instruct an athlete that you're working with what are you saying? What are you cueing? How are you making them aware of, hey, we got to recruit as many motor units as possible if you want to be explosive in whether you train MMA on the mat or on the field, on the pitch, or in the basketball court. How do you do that with an athlete?
Yeah, it's one word for me. It's intent, movement intent, and you're putting effort, planned effort behind each rep, behind each movement. So if I say, hey, we're going to do squats, I don't want you just to go, kind of lazily down and lazily back up. We're probably going to have some sort of tempo on the way down or a pause, but every single concentric or shortening muscle action should be as explosive as you can make it. Yeah. I know we've touched on it a little bit, but it's one of the lowest hanging fruits you can do as an athlete is just to maximize the movement speed of that rep, whatever weight we're working at, assuming the positions are correct and, posture and alignment's good. But I'm just saying, hey, I want this thing to move as fast as you can, regardless of how fast it actually moves. Say we're doing a heavy squat. It all starts here. So I'm gonna say, hey, I want you to get up as fast as you can. So it's really just letting him know, be like, don't be lazy. We're going to crush this one. I'll give you plenty of rest, but you just got to get in there and hit it as hard as you can on that muscle shortening. So that standing up from a squat or pushing the bench away or pulling whatever into you, that muscle shortening action needs to be as effortful as possible.
Yeah. I like that. The word that I use is speed. And, we've worked together. I like to, someone, you mentioned squatting as an example. I like to be right behind them in their ear, almost like an umpire behind a baseball catcher. I'm like right in there and I'm like, speed. I'm like, yelling at them, like, because I have seen studies and that show you perform with a little bit more oomph if you have somebody in your ear yelling at you, saying, verbal cues or whatever. So accelerate, speed, go. All of these things. But Sean, man, you hit the nail on the head. Like, if you want to recruit more motor units, well, let's back up a second. What is a motor unit for those that aren't?
A motor unit is the muscle fiber and the nerves it innervates. So it is literally the connection from the brain through the spinal cord, and the nerve basically goes out, and say it's a bicep, it's going to come out the spinal cord, and it's going to zap muscle fibers. And one nerve is responsible for a portion of muscle fiber. So that is a motor unit. We probably have millions of motor units, maybe more than that. But it's a motor unit is just the nerve and the muscle it's connected to.
And so on the basketball court, when you guys go to make a quick move, whether it's a a crossover dribble, whether it's just a one dribble pull up. You're trying to make this as quickly as possible, and that all starts here in the brain. Because remember, muscles only do what the brain tells them to do. That's why we rehearse movement. We rehearse certain moves on the basketball court. We rehearse exercises in the weight room to learn that pattern, that motor pattern. And so if you don't perform, like Sean said, in the weight room with as much intensity and as much speed as possible every set, every rep, I should say, then the most motor units will not be recruited. And then when you go to apply them onto a basketball court, whether you're jumping up for a rebound or a block or a dunk or whatever, you won't be as neurologically gifted, so to speak. You won't be as neurologically, online, so to speak. I've seen numbers and studies as low as 10%, where untrained people can only recruit about 10% of their muscle fibers. 10%. You're literally leaving 90% on the table because they don't have that mind-muscle connection. How do we improve that? Exactly what Sean said. When you go to make a move in the weight room, it's got to be with absolute intensity, with absolute speed, as quickly and as effortful as possible.
Yeah, and that comes. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say that just comes back to increasing our rate of force development or increasing our rate of velocity development, depending on the weight of the implement. But there's only two ways to produce force, right? So we have rate coding, which is the speed of the signal. And then we have motor unit recruitment, which is how heavy something is. So I want to turn as many motor units on, get the fibers to overlap as many as I can. And then I also want to have the biggest signal to grab as many muscles as I can. So we have rate coding and motor unit recruitment are the two ways to produce force. And so how do we do that? With heavy things and fast things, and heavy things trying to move fast. I'm trying to show you my fingers. Heavy things trying to move fast. So, that's how we're building speed. That's how we're building power. That's how we're building rate of force development. And that's how you're going to maximize your athleticism.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we have an A1a2 format, and let's break that down a little bit more. So you go into the weight room. I don't necessarily like, in most situations, single station sets. So for deadlift, it's a different story a lot of times, and for squat, it's a different story a lot of times. But when you go to the gym, again, your anabolic hormones are peaking in less than an hour. So we got to get in and get our work in, okay? So A1A2 means that first grouping is your A series, is your A group. You're going to have two exercises in there, a 1 and a 2. So A1 is your first exercise, A2 is your second exercise. So we're doing supersets, essentially, if you want to call them that. And let's just use upper body as an example, and let's use an overhead press and a chin up. So you're going to do your overhead press in your A1, you're going to do your chin up in your A2. And one thing this also is good for, because if you just did the overhead press, okay, and you'll be able to see it in a second. We'll be breaking down this different workout programs that we've worked on with athletes in the past in a second. But if you just did the overhead press, let's say 5 sets of 5, okay, just basic stuff, you're going to need a couple minutes in between each set if you want to recover, not fully, but get enough recovery to where you can hit that 5 RM again. When you do A1A2, you potentially drop that rest period lower. So if I do an A1 overhead press, rather than waiting for 2.5 minutes before I go back, or even 3 minutes, I'm going to wait 90 seconds. And then I'm going to go do a chin up. And then the time it takes me to do the chin up, let's say it's a 30-second set. And then I take 90 seconds and go back to the overhead press. So you have the 90-second rest period, plus the 30 seconds it took to do your chin up, plus the 90-second rest period after the chin up. Now the working muscles of the overhead press have had 3.5 minutes before they're hit again, but you got something else on in the meantime, okay? So the efficiency factor comes really into play. This does a lot of good things too, as well, like we mentioned before, for agonist, antagonist muscle groups, the synergistic effect of those, as well as, which is really important if you're trying to lose fat, the lactic acid production, or the lactate production, because your body is still working in a really intense way, but it's not in the muscle group that was working prior. So that muscle group is getting rest, but your body's still working really hard. So it doesn't have the proper time frame to flush out all of that lactate. And that lactate is going to drive fat loss because it's driving growth hormone. It will also drive growth because it's driving growth hormone. Sean, go up.
Yeah, I think I want to back up just a little bit. We talked about an A series, but I think I want to kind of give them a little bit more background on what should be in the A series. I know you brought up an example of the overhead press and the pull up, but guys, our A series is our big muscle groups. So usually when I'm prescribing exercise, I know Coach Phil same way. We want to start our workout with compound multi-joint movements. So I would never do a bicep curl or a tricep extension as my A series. I would save that for a B series or a C series, depending on what our goals are. So when we're thinking A series, guys, we want to have our biggest multi-joint compound movements. So I'm talking your big stuff, your big pushes, your big pulls, your big presses, your big vertical pulls, your squats, and your deadlifts. So think of the big compound muscle joint movements. Those should be your A series. And so some easy ways to think about that is work your muscles from large to small. So your bigger muscles first, smaller muscles last. And then also at the same time, we want to work our movements from fast movements to slow movements. So if I'm doing plyometrics or jumps, I want to do those first before I get tired so that I'm not limiting the potential capacity of those jumps if I do them too late in my set. So we work big to small, and we also work fast to slow. And in that same concept, we work complex to simple. So if I'm doing something like any sort of jumping or anything that takes a skill where I have to think about what it is, I want to do that earlier. If it takes a lot of technique, I want to do that stuff first so I'm fresher and I can have a better rehearsed movement like Coach Phil's talking about. So we work big to small, fast to slow, and complex to simple. So keep those in mind when you're talking about your A series. You're definitely not doing calf raises, biceps, delts, things like that in your A series. We're talking big pushes, pulls, presses.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that out there before we start getting too much detail on an A series and into the weeds. I just want to say, like, hey, A series should be your primary goal for the day. Hey, I'm doing big pushes and pulls today. Boom, A series.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. And I'm going to take you even a step further. The A1 exercise specifically is your primary focus of the day. So, we have a client currently that's trying to, we need him to get stronger overhead. So overhead press a lot of times is his A1 exercise. That's just, that's the primary focus of the day. Regarding athletes too, if you think about athlete performance, the predominant motion is extension. You could say go a step further, even triple extension, whether you're running horizontally or jumping vertically. So my A1 when I'm talking with and working with athletes and specifically basketball players is always an extension exercise. It's never a flexion exercise. So I'm not going to put usually, there are rules are made to be broken, right? So we're setting up the rules. And so if you see, I do a hamstring curl in an A1, don't say, oh, Phil, you said you only do extension. Yes, that's true. But so I normally won't have a hamstring curl in my A1 because that's a flexion exercise. I always want extension in A1, and A1 will always be my primary focus. B1 is my secondary focus of the day. Okay, so and your A2 is predicated on your A1, and your B2 is predicated on your B1. So these are things you need to think about. So you're a basketball player. Let's break it down even more practically. You're a basketball player. And you only have 2 workouts a week during the season, and you want to maintain your muscle. You don't want to lose it because you need it. Because let's say you're 6'10", you play the post a lot, and you also want to keep your vertical jump pretty good or improve it even during the season. You could put a front squat there in your A1. That'd be a really smart move for you to do. You could put a deadlift there. But a lot of times, again, we talked about that earlier, when you hit a squat or a deadlift, for the most part, I typically have them be just single station exercises. So instead of A1 or A2, it's just A. Now that's if you're an experienced athlete. That's if like Sean said, you can recruit a lot of motor units. And I know you're gonna, a 3RM or a 5RM is a true 3RM and a 5RM. And so, but let's just go back to the A1, A2. you're that 6'10" basketball player. You need to maintain your size. You need to maintain your vertical explosiveness for rebounding, blocks, dunks, all that stuff. We're going to put a front squat there in your A1. Now that determines, and it wipes out a lot of things that could be into the A2. Now let's go. Let's take it a step further, Sean, because we're already about 30 minutes in.
Go.
We're in the season. I mentioned a second ago we need probably 2 workouts a week. That is based on the experience that I've had working with basketball players, with the amount of practices they have in a week, with the amount of games they have in a week. I can really only wish for and hope for 2 workouts a week. If I get 3, I'm ecstatic. But I'm planning on 2. So we need to do probably total body workouts twice a week. If we do all lower body one day and all upper body the other day, you're probably going to have too much volume and you're going to be too sore. We don't need you so sore during the season. We just need you to maintain your strength. And a lot of younger players that aren't getting many minutes, they can actually improve during the season. Don't think you have to lose weight and lose your power and all this during the season. You can get stronger. You can get bigger. Because you're not burning so many calories on the court playing. But that's a side note. So again, you're in the weight room. We got about 50 minutes for you to really maximize your hormones. So hormonals. Okay, there we go. So A1 will be a front squat. A2, again, depending on the individual, 6'10", 250, 260, maybe not have chin-ups there, but I like chin-ups as the A2 exercise. But let's say you do a pull down. Let's say you do so let me back up a second. A front squat is a quad dominant exercise. It's the front part of your lower body. The nervous system likes to pair, if you're going upper body, lower body supersets, the front side of the lower body with the back side of the upper body and vice versa. So if you do a front squat, my brain immediately goes to, we need to pair this with a back exercise. If we can do chin-ups, great. I would probably, if we can't do chin-ups, do a seated row variation or a lat pull-down variation, because the front squat is pretty intense on the back, or the back squat even more so intense on the back. So a bent over row or something is something I'm going to avoid. I want to think about, again, my A1 is my primary focus of the day. So I want to maximize that. So I'm not going to go to A2 and bend over and do a bent over row and really trash my back and then expect good numbers on my front squat. So in my A2, I'm going to be supported. I'm going to be seated unless I'm doing a chin up. And then, and we also want to keep the intensity up during the season. So that's another problem I see a lot of basketball players do is, they're training throughout the off season, and Coach John and I have talked about this in other episodes multiple times. And they get strong, they get explosive. They're doing the Olympic lifts or variations of them right before the season. And then when the season comes, they're like, okay, I'm going to switch to 3 sets of 10. I'm going to switch to 3 sets of 12 to 15. It's like, you're totally telling your body, I want to go this way. I want to go slower. I want to go towards a different goal, all these sorts of things, rather than keeping up the strength and keeping up the intensity and keeping up the explosiveness. So during the season, I mean, that A series, 5 sets of 5 is great. You could do, 5 sets of 4 to 6, 5 sets of 3 to 5. We're keeping the weight up and the volume down. Volume is the amount of reps and sets total in your workout. So volume stays low, intensity stays high. That's going to keep you strong. It's going to keep your nervous system jacked. It's going to keep your muscles on for the most part if you're eating and sleeping. And it's going to do better to keep you explosive on the basketball court. Sean, I'm sure something rattled around in your brain there when I was chatting. Go ahead.
No, I'm in the same boat as you. I think most people kind of they trail off and they lose sight of their goal as they continue their training on. So I mean, I'm with you. 4 to 6 sets probably. I'm doing 4 to 6 reps too. Usually under 5. Usually under 5 reps, especially for like an A series if we're trying to build any sort of speed or power and stay strong or maintain speed or strength. But yeah, you want to keep the volume low. So I wouldn't even go over 5 reps, honestly. If you're doing a squat and any big barbell movement or any big like compound multi-joint movement, I would just say as a rule of thumb, I'd go 5 or less reps.
Yeah. And for me, it depends on the athlete, depends on the training age. So a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm 25, I'm 30, but I want to know your training age. How long have you trained? and trained correctly and trained with the proper intensity. Because every time I start a basketball player, if we're doing let's say we're doing a deadlift, I'll say, how much can you deadlift? I can deadlift, let's say 100 kilos. Like they're not really, okay. And by the second month, they're deadlifting 150 kilos. Like I technically probably didn't up their deadlift 50 kilos. I just knew what they could do based on the speed of the movement, based on the reps that we're doing. I think a lot of basketball players are afraid to put weight on the bar, because it feels heavy. But when you look at the speed of the movement, I'm like, shoot, he got up there really quick, and we're only doing 5. We're gonna put some weight, keep going up in weight, and see what you got. And so, prime example being my client Scott. I like to talk about him, and Sean, Scott. Scott, he's not a big man. He's 5'9", 5'10", 160 pounds. And we had him on the trap bar deadlifting double his body weight. I want to say it might have been 330, 340, somewhere in there for 2 to 3 reps. And, way before that, when he was in the 250, 260 range, even, he was like, I can't believe I did this. I've never, but people don't think about it. They just, we're talking about a deadlift. They pick up the weight and they're like, dang, that's heavy. But it's not heavy if you think about how fast you're moving and how many reps we're working at. Sean, what's up?
Yeah, just going to say, it's kind of that old adage used to hear, maybe like, sports announcers saying, oh, he's so muscle bound. He's so muscle bound. He's not going to be very explosive. Or look at someone like Zion Williamson, who's incredibly muscle bound. It may or may not impact your vertical jump height just because you're trying to lift a higher load. But you guys got to remember, the more strength we have, the more capacity we have to build speed and power. Yeah. So don't be afraid of lifting heavy weights. One thing I will say is, if you guys are in season and you're not used to lifting certain heavy loads, I would avoid doing something new to yourself mid-season, because any new stimulus is usually what's going to create that soreness. And if that soreness carries over into your game, prevents you from making certain moves or, hitting certain drives, then that might be an issue. But the growing strength is actually what helps us produce our speed and power. It's our base layer, and creates a bigger pool for us to pull out of. So if you can hit it safely, and if you can hit it with good joint positions, you definitely want to increase your strength. I think the rule of thumb that me and Phil talked about was probably about double body weight for whatever lift you're looking for, because we know that eccentric forces coming into jumps are about 2 times body weight. Yeah. So there's a certain point to where being strong won't necessarily affect your speed and power, because there's a cap essentially. But as a rule of thumb, I'd like to say, if you can squat or deadlift or bench or whatever 2 times your body weight, you're in a really good place for strength. So keep that in mind. So it's not having muscle doesn't make you slow. Muscles are what produce, along with tendons and joints, but they're what produce your strength, your speed, and your power. So don't be scared. Don't be scared of lifting weights. Unless you haven't ever and you're in season right now. Don't want to be adding those new stresses for the reasons we talked about. So just something to keep in mind. But having more strength will give us a bigger pool to build our speed and power.
It's really true. And I have basketball players all the time say, oh, I don't want to get too big. It's so hard in terms of, to get really big. Like I was talking with a player yesterday from Indiana. He's playing in Luxembourg, 6'8". He's only 200 pounds, and he wants to put on weight. And I was referencing to some of my older players. I talked about Scott earlier. He put on 8 pounds in the first 2 months. A lot of my athletes put on a kilo a week, so 1 to 2 pounds a week. If you're working at the intensity you should work at with the proper volume, and eating enough and sleeping enough, you should be able to gain a lot. But when I have my athletes gaining weight, they're not on the basketball court. So the fact that you're on the basketball court burning so many calories, trust me, get in there, work hard in the weight room, get strong, like Sean said, so that you can increase your capacity, increase your pool of available muscle to be able to, and neural capacity, don't forget, to be able to run faster and jump higher, because we're trying to get explosive on the basketball court. Sean, I wanted to hit something. You talked earlier, 4 to 6 sets. And sets are really important in structuring your workout when, especially we're in season, because too many sets. Obviously, we know about 12 sets a week per body part is really kind of the target when we're trying to grow and things like that. But make sure you're not overtraining to the point of, again, you can be somewhat sore during the season, but that's not the goal. The goal is to maintain intensity. The goal is to maintain strength, and not necessarily go, 20 sets of, bench press because you're trying to grow your chest muscles. So be aware of your the amount of sets that you're doing. I mentioned my workout earlier at the beginning of the show. This is my workout today. A1a2. We talked about, the A1a2 format. So again, I mentioned I only got to 6 sets, left 3 on the table. Sorry, coach. But when you look at the A1A2, so 9 sets, 4 to 6, 1-1-XO tempo. We won't get into tempo right now. And then I rest 10 seconds, and then I go to the A2, and then I got 4 minutes of rest after I do this A2 exercise. 60 seconds per minute times 4 minutes is 240 seconds. So a lot of times this will be more so, and this is a different format, so hopefully y'all can see it and appreciate it. This is from a while ago. We were doing 5 to 7 reps. My client Scott, I mentioned. Here's A1A2, like we've been talking about. Okay. And we did 5 sets of 5 to 7. So he did a chest press for 5 to 7 reps. Okay, you can see here he did 155 for 7. And then he had 1 minute and 15 seconds. He had 75 seconds off. And then we did an A2. He did a neutral grip chin up, again for 5 to 7 reps. He had 35 additional pounds strapped to his body. He got 6 reps. And then after those 75 seconds, you go back to A1 and you repeat it for the amount of sets that we have written out, which is 5 here in this situation. I write a lot of workouts where there's an A3 and there's an A4. You know what I mean? That just means you go through all 4 exercises before returning to the first one in the series. You can write, there's all sorts of ways. But for the most part, basic standard workouts, what I'm doing is A1, A2, B1, B2, and then if there's time, C1, C2. Here's another client of mine, Egidijus Jukauskas, who's a phenomenal player out of Lithuania. He's playing in Pro A in Russia. This was a specific prep phase in July, getting ready for his training camp in August. You can see there's just an A1, A2, and then there's a B1, B2. We were doing, because he had the time, we were doing an AM workout, and then we were doing a PM workout. Because again, if we're going to go pretty hard, pretty heavy, pretty intense, we can't go much longer than 50 minutes. So we want to go in the AM, go really hard with some of the big lifts. There's your deadlift. He had a 10-second rest, and then he went into a penta jump, and then he had 3 minutes off. We did that for 4 sets, and then we did a Russian step up, 60 seconds rest into a straight leg calf raise, where he then also had 60 seconds rest, and then you would go back and do your B1, B2 all over again. So again, going back to what we talked about, A1 was the primary here. We're getting really explosive. We're getting really specific, really close to the season. So you can see the tempos are a little bit faster in a lot of these exercises. And then the B1 is the secondary exercise, the secondary focus, I should say. And then the calf raise was there as well. So again, we got this in 45, 50 minutes. And then we did some other stuff in the PM. So there's some examples of an A1, A2 structure on what it should look like, what your workout should look like. Sean, can you talk about, you mentioned how players shouldn't have, probably new, too much new stuff in during the season because they don't want to, get too much soreness and muscle, blah, blah, blah. So what would you suggest at this time of year? It's late in the season. I know everybody's different. Some people don't squat. Some people haven't squatted. Some people haven't done whatever. But what sounds good to you in terms of an A1, A2 for a basketball player currently right now, nearing the end of their season?
So depending on how I set up their training during the week, typically for me, coming from like a football background, we don't play multiple games per week. We usually play one game a week. So the way I usually do it is I'll do a heavy day and a light day as my 2 days. And so my earlier in the week, if I get them like on a Monday or Tuesday, that'd be awesome. That's usually when I'm doing our squats, our deadlifts, our presses, our pulls, and some of our heavier movements. And then if I get them again a second time towards the end of the week, this is where I'm doing more of our plyometrics, more speed work, more high velocity movements. It could be the same. It could be the same exact workout where we've literally just adjusted the weights. It could be a little bit more Olympic style with light, or it could be a lot more like plyometrics and med ball work. I'll usually do more like barbell dumbbell stuff earlier. And then on the second workout, I'll usually do more medicine ball, plyometric stuff like that. And so if I got a basketball player or someone who's in season, what I would do is probably something like that. I'd probably go a heavy day and a light day, but I would use exercises that they're already familiar with and already things that they've seen in their training program for two reasons. One, so I'm not, super sore from trying a brand new exercise, but two, you're in season. So we're trying to maintain everything you've built on. So I don't necessarily have the time to teach you new technique and new training for another exercise. To get the best benefit of an exercise, it should be a rehearsed movement that you can execute on. So for those two reasons, trying to reduce any fatigue and soreness and trying to reduce any unnecessarily new learning to slow the adaptation process down. I'm probably using things that we already know. So if you've done a step up, I might take that and do like a heavy step up day one. And then your day two workout might be a little step up jump, like a little box blast where I hit the thing hard and actually jump off the box. Which would be an example of like a day one versus day two similar exercise. Or I might take a heavy squat and then do like a dumbbell squat jump or something like that. Or, a heavy deadlift one day. And then the next day I might do like a lighter clean pull or a medicine ball throw overhead where I'm kind of matching that similar movement pattern. But I really like throwing medicine balls as something in season. There's one thing when you're lifting weights like barbell, dumbbell, where you can't release the load, you have to inherently slow that movement down or decelerate that movement. So any squat, any bench press, any row, anything like that, I can't jump through the roof on it because there's a bar on my back. So I have to slow my body down. So I really like medicine ball work and plyometric work for those kind of reasons. Even some certain machine work, like if you got a squat machine, you're supported. So the bar is not going to go anywhere. You're not going to be unstable. So you have a little bit more stability to almost jump through or drive all the way through that movement. And you're going to get more total force application through that movement because you don't have a deceleration phase. I'm not saying deceleration phase is bad. You definitely need a deceleration for training athleticism, but in season, it's not necessarily the time to build that. Hopefully we've already had that built up, but I'm probably doing like heavy loads, barbell, dumbbell base work for day one, and then lighter loads, more velocity on day two with like medicine balls and bands and body weight stuff.
Cool. I love it. Yeah, it's good. And, kind of conjugate style, Louis Simmons, they have the speed day in there.
That's exactly.
Sounds like what you're doing. There's that, heavy day, but there's also the speed day. You mentioned it's closer to the game, the speed day. So your body has time to recover from the heavy.
Yeah. Cool. There's a little bit less damage to the muscle. So we know that heavier loads are more damaging to the muscle fibers. So that's where you get that microtrauma. That's why heavy loads can still help you grow muscle because you're damaging the muscle fibers. So we call it protein degradation. There's less protein degradation with lighter loads.
Okay.
Protein degradation is a good thing to have. This is how we get strong. This is how we grow muscle. But again, in season is not the time to be growing. It's not the time to be increasing. We're trying to maintain everything we've done in the off season and utilize that for in season. Because if I'm growing and I'm increasing the adaptation, there's a lot of stress on my body to make that happen. So I'm trying to mitigate stress, mitigate fatigue so that I have as much potential energy for the game, for the court, for my actual performance.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Final thing here. Let's write a workout for in-season basketball.
But before we do that, Phil, can we help these guys out? Can we give them a quick rundown of like a B and a C series? I know we talked a lot about an A series, but
yeah. I'm sharing my screen already. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so we know A series, right? A series is your primary. So your B series, you're going to want to use your secondary focus. So for instance, let's take our example, and I have a vertical press and vertical pull as my A1, A2, my B series can build off of that. So if I'm hitting vertical movement patterns in my A series, I might want to do horizontal movement patterns in a B series, maybe something a little smaller, a little bit less taxing on the CNS, where I'm doing maybe a dumbbell bench press and a chest supported row or some sort of push and a pull. And then usually a B series is a really good time to incorporate like one-sided movement. So a single arm or a single leg movement. It should build off your A series. So if I have, upper body A series, I probably have an upper body B series, unless we're on a full body day where I got A1 is upper, A2 is lower. I'll do that again. I'll go upper, lower, and then I'll have movements that complement the first two movements. So if, for instance, could be some like shoulder postural stuff, or some maybe a little bit higher rep ranges, usually on a B series because I'm already taxed. So that's that time. If I did 4 or 5 reps on a B series, maybe I can do 6 to 8 reps on if I did 4 to 6 on an A series, maybe I'm doing 6 to 8 on a B series. So we're working higher volume as we go down our exercise because I want to make sure I'm less fatigued at the top. And so as fatigue builds, we can start adding a little bit more reps. But yeah, B series would complement your A series.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, and I'm glad you brought up this point because I want to talk on it too. Your A series, like we've talked about, is your primary focus. Your squatting is always an A. Your deadlifts are always an A. Your chin-ups are always an A. Your overhead presses, your barbell work, like Sean said. B series for me is the assistance group. Okay, so it complements the A, like Sean said. You can get your unilateral work in here. So if you need a split squat, if you need a step up, if you need a lunge, all those types of things. For me, the C series is your remedial lifts. They're your auxiliary lifts, and by remedial I mean the external rotation, elbow on knee, the Powell raises, the trap 3 raises, all the stuff that can improve your posture. We know that the external rotation, let me break down real quick. So a chin up is an internal rotation of the shoulder movement. When you pull down, your shoulder joint is internally rotated. Same thing on a chest press in your pressing movements. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We know that the external rotators of the shoulder can significantly impact your chin up strength. They can significantly impact your pressing power. And so we need to do those. Now, from a postural standpoint, they really improve your posture. They're great for old folks. They're great for a lot of people who are sitting at computers all day. But as athletes, if we can, remember we talked about shoulder strength being a 15% potentially contributor to your vertical jump. Well, if you can't press strong shoulder-wise, overhead press, we need to figure out what that problem is. It might be your external rotators are weak. So that's going to my C series. That's going to complement and support, and it's a remedial lift, but it's going to support that overhead press. It's going to support the other things that we're doing. I have a couple examples, I guess, here in this program. Yeah. I've already shared with Scott. So here's Scott's workout again. Now this day, we just did arms because we were trying to put on some size. So there's no remedial in here. Well,
that goes back to those single joint exercises you can see. So we said big compound movements for your A series, assistance exercises for your B series, which are still compound movements usually, but your C series is where you want to add in all your higher rep ranges and all your postural, supportive, stability type exercises. So anything for the internal, external rotators of the shoulder, internal, external rotation through the hip. This is where you're getting a lot of your ankle support. So if you're doing calf raises or anything for the adductors, maybe. So this is all your kind of particulars where you're like, hey, you know what? I want to build adductor strength. So when I'm lateral movement, I have that trail leg is strong if I need to go back to it. Or like we talked about, having strong external rotators, which build posture, build support, and build a secondary base for my pushing actions. Yeah. So that C series is where you're going to want to do your higher rep ranges, usually things that are a little bit more mindless. So your bicep, tricep, delt, calf raises, again, stability, support exercises, things that maybe are more muscle building. You're typically trying to grow muscle or build a little endurance or build a little fatigue. Right. Ideally not in season, but you can still do those at a lower capacity. But those are the like supporting muscle groups, your tertiary, your third focus.
Tertiary. I love that word. Way to drop some vocab on us. Very cool. Yeah, no, dude, I don't need to say anything. You hit the nail on the head. But in season 2, your C series, you might not have enough time for it.
Yeah, right.
But like you said, your ankle mobility stuff, the calf raises. You saw I did arms on this one day for this athlete, and then the other day was the remedial stuff, the trap 3 and the power raise. Because by that point in the workout, you've done the big stuff. Your nervous system is shot. That's why you don't put it up front. You put it at the end. When you're fresh, you want to do the big stuff. So awesome, Sean.
And then to that point, real quick, I know we're kind of going a little bit, but usually those supporting muscle groups, like the ankle and calves, the shoulders and delts, the muscle fiber types in those muscles are more resistant to fatigue. They're those type 1 endurance fibers, so they can handle more volume without getting as fatigued as some of the bigger primary muscle groups. So usually that's why we save them for the end of the workout, is because those muscles can handle the volume better than the other muscle groups. So you can still crush your ankles. I know JB Moraine is one of the leading researchers on sprint and speed mechanics. And according to a lot of his research, they'll do like 50 calf raises, and you might get a little bit of soreness, but I mean, imagine you're walking all day long on your ankles and calves. Like those things handle tons and tons and tons of volume. So his protocols just absolutely crush your calves. But he said, hey, this is okay. These are type 1 muscle fibers meant to absorb this much volume. You're probably not going to get as fatigued or as sore from that kind of movement on those like smaller muscle groups. So that's where we're doing more like 10 to 12 reps, maybe up to 15 reps without too much fear of being sore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't mention that earlier too, but in terms of going from A to C series, and from the beginning of the workout to the end, you want to do the fast twitch muscles first, right? I mean, that's the way I have it planned. And I know I said I won't ever do a hamstring curl in the A1, but I know that I have, because hamstrings are 100% fast twitch muscle fibers. And I had a client that was really weak in the hamstrings and we needed to grow them. That was our primary focus that day. Again, I break my own rules, and there you go. There's your line hamstring curl A1. So anyway.
Hey, it's all about the goal, right? The exercise depends on your goal. So it's okay to maybe go against some of the more common style training to accommodate someone's goal. It's like, hey, I came to you and I'm paying you to grow my biceps. I'm like, all right, sweet. Barbell bicep curls, spider curls. We're doing hammer curls, French curls, Salomon curls. Yeah. I'm just going to throw in a whole bunch of arm exercises, obviously maybe some shoulder external. But the goal of your workout is always going to precede any potential like rules of thumb, right? So your goal is always going to be the most important thing.
Yeah. So let's create a workout, and let's just say it's a average basketball player, 6'5", 6'6", maybe.
In season?
Yeah, in season. Well, it's March 2nd. Let's say it's this week.
Cool.
Let's say we have a clean slate. He's got no injuries. Let's say 6'5", and let's say 215 pounds. So he's good size, typical average, I would say, but on the good side of average basketball body. Again,
I'm going posterior chain.
Say what?
But I'm going posterior chain to start this thing.
So we have 2 days a week. This will be one of the days. He, again, has a clean slate. He's got a 5-year training age, so the whole playbook is open. We can use whatever we want. In the A series, again, depending on the person, depending on where we're at, again, this is some arbitrary, made up person. I'm probably going to put something like a clean pull in here. What are you thinking?
I was right in there. I was thinking some sort of like hex dead or some sort of rack pull or some some sort of posterior chain that we can really load, because we know that our posterior chain is going to propel our locomotion. It's going to push us forward. It's going to push us up. So I'm going my favorite muscle group. We're going posterior chain right away. Clean pull works. Some of you guys, we could do like hex bar deadlifts. I love, or lifts off a rack, especially for you tall people who have trouble getting to the ground. Yep. So if I'm doing a clean pull, I'm probably doing a hang. I'm probably going from the hang on that. Okay. If you don't have experience going off the floor, we definitely want to start at a lifted position. So you'll see a lot of basketball players do pulls off the rack. They'll do pulls off the blocks, or they'll do like high handle hex bar deadlift type stuff.
Right. Yep. So I'm going to say 6 sets of 4 for me. I like a 1 second pause on the ground, even still,
sure.
Kind of gather themselves. So I'm going to say X1XO tempo. I'm going to say 180 seconds rest. And again, if you don't know what this is, message me. Be happy. Sean, hex bar deadlift. What are you going?
Oh, I'm probably on the 4 to 6 on the hex bar. Oh, we're in season. I probably would have done triples on my clean pull, and I probably would do 4 to 6 on my hex bar deadlift.
How many sets on your deadlift?
I'm probably in there on like 4 to 6, probably about 5 maybe.
Let's do this. Let's just use tabs because they are much better. Boom.
Ooh, pretty.
Yeah, I know, man. I know what I'm doing. So you said 5 sets of 4 to 6?
Yeah, I'd probably do like a 5 by. Yeah, exactly. Right in there is perfect.
Okay. What's your tempo on your deads?
If we're in season, I usually like to mitigate or eliminate the eccentric where the muscle's lengthening, because that's where we get the most fatigue. So okay. I'm probably doing XOXO. I mean, I'm probably ripping it off the ground and I'm dropping it.
Okay. So you're doing but you still have to pick it up. So there's probably a 1 in here, right? Or no?
I'm going quick off the ground. I'm trying to, especially if I have it on blocks or if I have it on high handles, I should be in a pretty good loaded joint position where I can just rip that thing.
Okay. How much rest?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
I'm in there. I'm on something like that.
I'm going to leave mine in just an A. Do you want an A2, or are you going to leave yours with an
A? For a hex bar deadlift, let's see. Let's go A2. I mean, we may as well throw some upper body movement in there. I'll probably throw, if I'm pulling, I'll probably add like a bench press in there, or like some sort of pushing action or something like that.
Come on, format. Let's go. Okay, so you're gonna go chest press barbell.
Yeah, that'll work for me.
Okay. Same rep scheme and everything.
I'd probably go same rep scheme. I like to pull a little bit more than I push.
Yep.
That works for me. Yeah, and I'd probably do this one with a little bit of eccentric.
Cool.
The chest probably can handle a little bit more load than the back.
So what's your tempo? 301?
I'd probably be like 2 down, 1 pause. So 2-1-XO, I would say.
Okay.
And I'd probably match that rest. Yeah.
Cool. Man, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. So let's go. So you're going to have a B1 and a B2. I'm also going to, oh, dang it. Come on. B1. Oh, whatever. We're going to put it. Dadgummit. Oh, man. Oh, well. You guys get it. If you can see my my OCD coming in with formatting, it drives me crazy. Okay, so I got my clean pull. Like Sean said, it's posterior chain. It's explosive. I don't want to do probably too much more on that muscle group. B1, I definitely want to keep my upper body strength up. So I prefer an incline chest press.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put 30 degrees. I'm going to put 4 sets of 4 to 6. And then I'm going to do a 3-0-1-0 tempo. This could also be a 3-1-1-0 tempo. There's your 3-0-1-0. And then I'm going to do 90 seconds. Sean, what's your B1?
Since I'm matching it off my A1, since I did a lower body pull, I'm probably doing a lower body push on this one.
Okay.
So I'd probably go with like a step up or a lateral squat or something like that. I'd probably say, let's go lateral squat.
I like these. I like these episodes because I hear a little bit more about you specifically and your training methods. And while we get along and agree on almost everything, there are some things that we don't agree with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the lateral squat, I would never program. But someone like you, who's also successful and had success with a lot of athletes, you program it. So my point in saying all that is, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. And in the course of my career, I've been a jerk to people, think, oh, that's a dumb exercise. Why would they ever do that? I know you have your WTF Fridays, which those are a little bit more obscure, but there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and a lot of athletes do get some good results from various methods. So,
and if it wasn't going to be a lateral squat, it probably would have been a step up.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah.
I just like moving.
I'm not judging. I'm making a point that, hey, this can work with somebody too.
Well, I know we got to go multi-directional, right? So if I play basketball, I can't train only in the forward plane. You guys got to lateral slide. You got to make pivots and cuts. So try and train muscles that relate to the sport action. This one's going to be lower volume. So I'd probably go 4 sets, maybe 6 to 8 reps on this.
Okay. Tempo.
And then the tempos would be pretty low. I'd probably go 2-0-1-0. So I just kind of control it in and pop out of it.
Okay. And then your rest?
We'd go a little bit less rest. I'd probably give 90 seconds here.
Okay. So for me, gosh, I don't know. This could be a lot of stuff. Now that I'm thinking, and again, I'm just spitballing here. I'm gonna move my my incline chest press to B2. I'm gonna do a Russian step up here.
Heyo.
Again, not much volume. Oops. Now I'm gonna do 8 to 10. My Russian step ups. Russian step ups are always an XOXO. So you can see the time under tension here is very low in all of these. So I am keeping your strength up because we're only doing 4 reps here. We're doing 8 to 10 here, but again, the tempo is just boom, 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 boom. With a Russian step up, if you don't know what that exercise is, look it up. Good, quick, powerful, explosive move. A lot of quad in that versus the clean pull, which does have quad, but it's we're talking a lot of posterior chain too. So the time under tension isn't going to drain and fatigue the body this time of year, which we don't want. We want to stay explosive, powerful, not be tired and fatigued. So my B series will be a Russian step up, and then your incline chest press. Well, go ahead, Sean. What's your B2?
Seeing as how I got a bilateral horizontal push, I'll probably do like a unilateral horizontal pull or a vertical pull. So I'm either in here with like a one arm row or a one arm like lat pull down. Let's just call that a one arm row. So I'll probably do like a seated cable row or like a split stance dumbbell row, something like that.
Okay. And then obviously we're doing 4 sets here.
Yeah, so I would probably match that.
4 sets here. This is okay? The reps?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. So again, we're looking at the time. We're getting really close. This is probably, without looking, in the 45-minute, 50-minute range. I may add a C myself, just alone by itself. And this can, again, we're looking at the remedial lifts. We did a push here. So I may do external rotation, elbow on knee, depending on where they're at. This could be external rotation, arm abducted to side, yada, yada, whatever whatever you want. Some external rotation, some sort of Powell raise, but a remedial lift. I'm going to do 2 to 4 sets. Again, I do that when I don't, know about the time. So 2 to 4 sets or 3 to 4 sets. I'm going to do 8 to 10. I'm going to do a 3-0-1-0. I'm going to do a 45-second rest. maybe even 30-second rest, because this is a single arm exercise. So when the one arm's working, the other arm's resting. So you're getting some rest anyway on the working arm. So 30 seconds might be enough for that. Sean, do you have anything else in your work?
I would be done off this workout. I
Yeah.
will say I want to modify mine a little bit. I'd like to do a standing split stance one arm row, because that's going to mimic more of the lower body movement mechanics I would see in sport. And then I would also change my tempos. If I have a 2-0, 1-0, I would make that a 2-0 XO.
On this one, or the lateral squat, or both?
On both. I want max intent out of those. So I don't even want a 1 second rep. I want a half a second rep. I want a very quick explosive punch out of that. And then that would be our whole workout. I would probably skip and drop the accessory movements and maybe save those for our day 2 workout.
Yeah, great. And for those of you who don't know, again, we're not going too in depth with tempo, but X just means with as much effort, with as much speed, with as much intensity as possible. When I write ones, it's still implied, but the X is just kind of like signifies like, hey, get moving.
Get moving.
Yeah. So there you have it. There's two different examples of what you could do if you're a basketball player in season, and you kind of have a clean slate. These workouts should be, assuming you've done these movements and these muscles are used to working at high intensities. These workouts should be good for you to maintain strength, maintain your explosiveness, which is what it's all about. So we're talking about today. But not make you too sore to where you can't play.
And then this would be my day 1 exercise. This would be the heavier of the two.
Yeah.
I would do something very different for like a plyometric medicine ball throw type based movement. I'd probably do some jumps in there. If this was a day 2 workout, I'd probably do some broad jumps or vertical jumps. I'd probably do like some medicine ball, rotational throwing, overhead throwing. I do some like bounding and some pogos, and probably call that a good day.
Right. And again, you're seeing the difference in me and Sean. This is a very explosive movement. This is also a explosive movement, and then these are not. So I mean, they are, but they're a little more regular weightlifting exercise or strength training exercises. Sean will go one heavy day and one totally light day. And I'm not saying Sean wouldn't put a clean pull in a heavy day, because he probably would.
Sure would.
Yeah. So, but you have basically 2 different methods for how different coaches will program. But there you go. There's some good examples of training programs. Sean, anything before we sign off?
Man, that was a lot. I mean, I'll just probably reiterate, when you're building a workout, big to small,
hire one of us,
fast to slow, complex to simple, multi-joint to single joint, and then I would say lower reps to higher reps as you go through your workout.
I had a thought right when I asked you that question. You started talking. So many basketball players don't even go to the weight room at all. They're afraid of it. And we're talking about being explosive on the basketball court. Guys, if you are overwhelmed by this workout or by this show today, just get in the weight room and do something. Like, there's so many quotes about, 60% is just showing up, or 80% is just get there. Like, so I've had days where I don't want to go train. I'm like, you know what? Just get your butt in there, and then good things will happen. So if you want to be faster, if you want to be more explosive, if you want to improve your vertical jump, you got to train, and you got to train with some intent, and you got to train with some effort, and you got to train. But you got to train, period. That's where it starts. So if you go in there and sit there and do bicep curls, like, you're doing something, like, so get in there and train. Go ahead.
I do. Okay. So being athletic requires type 2 muscle fibers. Type 2 muscle fibers are your fast twitch fibers. They respond to strength, speed, and power. Those are the ones responsible, right? So if you want to be a good athlete, you need to turn on these muscle fibers. The way you turn on these muscle fibers is either with fast movements, maximally fast, or heavy movements. Or heavy movements, maximally intent.
Yeah.
if you don't turn on these muscle fibers, they do not get trained. Right. So if you're not doing heavy stuff or fast stuff, you're not training these muscle fibers. You might get a little bit of secondary recruitment if you do a lot of reps and you burned out your type 1s and your type 2s kick on to help. But generally, you need to turn these on to get them trained. This is how they turn on. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but turn on these muscle fibers like this so that they get trained, so that you can be a better athlete, be more explosive, be faster. If you don't turn them on, they don't work.
And they turn on sequentially, like you mentioned in a couple episodes ago. So it's like get into RPM 7 on your car, like really going fast. But you can't get to 7 unless you get to 6, unless you get to 5. Like you got to go through the stages, and you're going to hit type 1 muscle fibers before type 2A and type 2A before type 2B.
Generally,
those B's though are the ones we really, really want to recruit for our purposes on the basketball court. So, Sean, man, that was a great ad.
Yeah, turn them on, man.
Yep,
turn them on.
All right, boys and girls, that's it for me today. Get training, get explosive. You got to train hard. You got to train heavy. You got to train fast. Until next week, we will see you, Coach Sean. Thank you so much as always. We'll see you.
Take care, guys.